Okay. All right, I have to put my glasses on. This is Pat McPherson, and I'm here with my colleague, Susan Creighton. We are recording interviews for the Marlboro Morris Ale Archive, which will reside at the Vermont Folklife Center in Middlebury, Vermont. It's Saturday, February 25th, 2023. We're at the Museum of the City of New York talking with Sarah Henry. Sarah, just introduce yourself and just say one sentence about who you are and what teams you're on.
Sure. I'm Sarah Henry. I'm a lifelong New Yorker, and I've danced, first I danced with New Haven Morris and Sword, who never were at the Ale. But then after that, Ring of Bells and Half Moon Sword since 1983.
Well, we're going to ask you about that.
Okay.
Almost immediately. Okay. So, Sarah. Hi.
Hi, Pat.
So, our first question is, tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how you got involved with folk dancing. Maybe it was through music, maybe it was through parents or something.
I'll tell you right away. Yes. So I grew up in New York in Greenwich Village, and I spent summers on Martha's Vineyard. And when I was a preteen, we used to go square dancing at the Chilmark Community Center, which I thought was thrilling. We did a little bit of square dancing in school, which I always liked also. But I was it was the summer after 7th grade, and I had a blast at the Chilmark Community Center, and I came home and I told my best friend, Judy Goldsmith, who's still a caller and has been a long-time Morris dancer, how much fun it was. And we both lived within a quarter to half a mile of what was then Duane Methodist Church, which was the longtime home of the Country Dance and Song Society dances.
Right.
And she found that there were dances there on Tuesday and Saturday nights. So she said, let's go. So we were in 8th grade. We were 13. And we started going to the Country Dance and Song Society dances on 13th Street. And we became completely obsessed. So we counted our week by how many days it was until the next time we could go dancing. And we were by far the youngest people there, but it was delightful. And May Gadd was still presiding, and Phil Merrill was playing, and all kinds of people were present too. I think I might have talked to you about this actually at an oral history at Pinewoods once. And there was little bits of Tuesday nights was English country dancing only and classes. Saturday nights alternated American and English, and the American might be contra, or it might be squares, or it might be Appalachian running squares or something. On Tuesday nights, after the experienced English and the open for all English classes, they'd have a special class that would run for some number of weeks. I can't remember how many. So that's when I first tried Morris dancing, because we had a workshop in Atterbury, I think, was probably the first tradition I tried when I was a teenager. So I danced all through junior high school and high school. And in 1977, at the what was called the Spring Festival, which was sort of the predecessor of what's the Playford Balls now, except it wasn't strictly Playford, but it was a big fancy English dance, and it was at Barnard College. 1977, April 23rd. The Binghamton Morrismen came down to perform at the dance, and along with them was a new recruit who had not yet danced out, but was a native New Yorker, and that was Michael Gordon, and that's where I met him. I was 15, going on 16, really? And we met there. So I saw Morris. I did a little bit of it, and so on, and then he and I became a couple the next year, and 78, I went as a guest to the Marlboro Morris Ale for the first time, because he was there dancing with the Binghamton men.
No kidding.
Then I was a groupie for 1978 and 79, And then I graduated from high school, and I went off to college at Yale. And I sort of secretly, or without announcing it, started going to the New Haven Morris and Sword practices. And then I told Michael I started Morris dancing too.
You told your...
My boyfriend.
Oh.
Yeah, I told Michael. So, and he was fine. He was thrilled with it. So then I was on Marlboro. I was on New Haven Morris and Sword for 4 years when I was in college.
And just out of curiosity, who else was on the team at that time with you in New Haven?
In New Haven? David Lindsay, Paul McGuire, Ellen Cohn, Gary Johnson. Oh my gosh, I have to really look back at who was on literally. Chris Newrath. No, he came after me. We met. I met him. He moved to New Haven pretty much just after I left New Haven. I think that's right. I'm pretty sure. I forget the timing exactly. Chris Newrath joined the same time I did. The very first practice I went to was the very first practice that Laura Robertson went to also. And I saw Laura at the Swordale last weekend, and she's like, we were at our very first Morris practice was the same day, because she was starting grad school then, I think. Or maybe she was an upper class student. She was an undergraduate, I think. Other people joined. John Collega joined. Oh my gosh, so many. Nelson Caldwell. Sarah, I have the list somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, you have a list?
Somewhere. Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you just to repeat the names. David, what was...
Lindsay.
Okay. And then somebody McGowan.
Paul McGuire.
Paul McGuire.
Mm-hmm. Gary Johnson. Ellen Cohn.
C-O-H-N? Cohen?
I think it's
C-O-H-N. I think that's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Gary Johnson, Chris Newrath, Laura Robinson, John
Collega. Kolega. He joined, I think, the year after me. I mean, there were a lot of people who came through the team. A lot. I'm sure I could come up with many more names.
And Nelson Caldwell.
Yeah, he joined later. Jim Brugg.
Jim
B-R-U-G. Oh my gosh. So many. David Ackerley joined later. I mean, we had many members in
cool.
Very...
Was Rhett on the team? He was too young?
Rhett wasn't on New
Wasn't
Haven.
on that team.
Yale, yeah.
Okay. So you had to take a subway somewhere and go to the New Haven Morris and Sword practices?
I was at Yale.
Oh,
at
Yale. Mm-hmm. Okay. And why were you afraid to tell Michael that you were on that team?
First I felt a little bit like, well, this was his thing, and I had been, been a loyal audience member. I don't think I was afraid. I think I was a little shy about it, but it was fine. And then he moved to New Haven 2 years later, and he joined the team.
Oh,
so he was on New Haven Morris and Sword also.
He's a dancer and musician.
Michael Glenn, yeah. So he was on Binghamton. He was a founding member of Bowery.
Oh. Okay.
He moved to New Haven and was on New Haven for 2 years when we lived together in New Haven for 2 years.
So you went to your first ale in 1978. Mm-hmm. Do you have any particular memories, impressions? Like what happened to you there?
See, I went there. My chaperone was a member of the Greenwich Morris Men. Oh my God, I can't think of Gary's last name for a second. I have to think. I will come up with it. Gary Farnham. My friend Judy came with me also, so we were there as guests. We arrived. We got lost on the way. We were driving up, and we came across Vermont. We came up through New York and across. We had to stop in some house by the side of the road to ask somebody if they knew where it was, because no internet, No. I remember when we arrived, we went into the dining hall. There was a contra dance going on. It was very lively on Friday night. The tenting was on, across the road on the hill. So there was everything. Everyone was, yeah. I can't remember how much of this is direct memory and how much of it is like repeated stories of some of this, But my recollection was that was the last year that for a very long time they had mixed teams. So I think that was the year that Roy Dommett came to the Ale.
That would be about right.
And so there was like Strong Morris was there, and I think they were dancing as a mixed team. I'm pretty sure that first year was when they were in my head just a second ago. There's a team from the South, a women's team from the South. It'll take me a while to pull it
Royal
out.
Felicity?
No. They were wonderful, energetic team with and really great singers, and the show dancing was on the field where the camping is now. So the dancing was on the grass, which was, I think, at the time considered to be the only safe place to Morris dance. That it wouldn't be, good to dance on hard pavement. That you should dance on the earth. So
and
that's
in fact, it's not good to dance on hard
pavement. In truth. Sourwood Morris was the name of the team.
Oh.
Sourwood.
What was that?
Sourwood Morris.
Wow. Thanks.
The dancing at Newfane was across the street. Also, was on the lawn of the where the courthouse and I think there's a jail there.
Right.
Yeah. So everyone was spread out there on the lawn. So I was absorbing it all, and I didn't really know the cast of characters, but I was very impressed with the dancing, with the singing. We definitely had I'm pretty sure it was on Saturday. There weren't tours in Brattleboro. I think it was all out in the towns, and so there was definitely a side trip made during the tour to go swimming in the river. So skinny dipping, and I think it was my first time skinny dipping ever. And
the West River.
My
In the what river?
The West River.
Okay.
I don't know what it was. It was we had to walk through a field. It wasn't right by the water.
Oh.
It wasn't right by the road. There was like parked and then walked through some fields and found there was like a shallow place with stones, and I want to say it was Michael would remember who it was who brought us there, but
and you were in your teens.
I was 16.
Yeah.
And I remember that Roy Dommett was on that tour, and he sat by the side and looked and didn't partake. Let's just put it that way.
He was
It was all new. All the characters were new to me.
Yeah.
And I remember Hearts of Oak were there, and so at that point they were women's team. They later became a mixed team. I think there might have been some nude Morris dancing early one morning also. I'm pretty sure. And I don't remember, because now the years start to blur together, but whether Monday, I think, might at that point already have been in Wilmington. I'm not sure, because we used to go on Monday morning for a final, like, just pub stand, dance in the alley out Pancho's Rec, the Mexican restaurant, and then they would be dancing in the side alley. There was like an empty lot right next to the restaurant, and people would be doing basically pickup dancing, but in kit. Like it was still a day of dance. Monday was still a day of dance.
We've heard people mentioning ponchos, so
Pancho's
I didn't quite
Rec,
have context for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
a nice Mexican restaurant with the space with this just like empty space next door. And then people would, in my recollection is that people would have packed their cars up and from when they'd start to depart from Pancho's. And I remember one year they didn't have it, and they found there was another spot. That was the Monday morning thing. I have a vague memory of where it was, but it was like a nice sort of inn place that had hot cider on this side of the road from the. I think that must have. I think I have a picture of Maggie Shealy there with a baby, so that must have been. We could roughly tell how long ago that was. A picture in my mind.
Do you know how to spell the last name Shealy?
Scheile.
I've seen that name.
Maggie Shealy Sullivan, yeah.
Okay.
She was on Ring of Bells when I joined.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to ask you now, although we plan to ask it later, that so you have been coming to the ale almost
1978.
continuously.
I missed
since-
2 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
I missed 1 year when I was at New Haven. My last year in New Haven, we went to the Mixed Morris Ale in Woods Hole. And I decided to go with my team and dance rather than, be a spectator. And then in 1994, and I was quite pregnant because Molly's birthday is June 13th. So,
Oh gosh.
yeah, so we didn't go that year.
Yeah.
But I think from 78 to 2023, that would be whatever that is,
Yeah.
45 years.
45.
Something like that, yeah.
Have you,
Mhm.
when you first saw it, you were young and probably your eyes were
Yeah.
big,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so then, and you were just watching.
Yes.
You
yeah.
didn't dance at all?
Right. Yeah, I did Morris dance at that point.
And when did you start going as a member of an invited team?
In 1983. So I graduated from Yale in 83 and I moved to New York. Michael and I moved to New York and I joined Ring of Bells and Half Moon that year. So it was 84. I'm sorry. So in the fall of 83, I joined Ring of Bells, and in May of 84, I went as a member of a performing team. So during the time that I was in New Haven and I was Morris dancing, I would come and wear New Haven kit and do pickup. I jumped into some things. I got into the mass dancing and things like that. Yeah. But in terms of going with a team, it was 84. Yeah.
So, how was it different, or was it different from being a guest of someone and then coming as part of your own team?
I mean, I think I probably am extrapolating just from probably what I'm feeling in my head. I remember. I mean, it was wonderful to be able to perform. With my team, with dances I knew, and to be dancing at New Fane. I remember vividly because that's where. Pretty sure that year is when we debuted Mary's Dance. I think that was the first time I was at Marlboro with Ring of Bells, and that was like a huge highlight dancing because it got a really great reception at New Fane. And Ring of Bells was a really big team at that time, and I think I was still finding my identity within the team, but it was, to have a crowd to be part of was, felt great. It was really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, be fully enfranchised after 6 years, right? Because I went in 70, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82. I guess 5 years. I skipped 83, and then I came back. Yeah.
The other thing I'm wondering about as you reflect over this incredibly long time, do you think the character of the ale has changed over the years?
I think it. I'd have to reflect on that a little bit. There are definitely things that are different about it. Different parts, it's structured in different ways. Adding the buses, the way the feast has moved when the dance, the social events, the character of that has changed. The existence of the pub, the moving of the pub, the student center versus the Rosie's pub. Like there are a lot of things that have shifted in the structure, and the touring in Brattleboro. I think that there was more. I don't know. It I remember some of the evening events, like singing in the field and bonfires in the field and things, that there was just a slightly different character to that. Definitely when they stopped having mixed teams, there was that kind of period that felt like a shift early on. And then it seems to me that the selection of teams and the attitude towards the dancing's gotten a little more relaxed. Maybe I've just gotten older, but I think it's gotten a little less sort of over the top. I think that I mean, you would know better than I would about whether the number of teams is a little bit smaller than it was, but it seemed to me for a time that it was massively big. There was definitely, I remember one year there were no guests allowed at the feast. I was a guest at that time. So that was a thing that I think that wouldn't happen. We used to cook breakfast on the field rather than having breakfast served in the dining hall. And so there was more of a social life in the field, and that was before any dorms were available. So I think the dynamic of that changed things a little bit. The introduction of more diverse dance forms feels like it changed. I'm riffing on things that are just occurring to me.
Yeah.
I think it was really pretty much all Morris with maybe a little garland dancing thrown in, but the introduction of sword teams in Northwest and the English teams coming. I think it's mutated is my feeling. Not, it still feels fundamentally the same, but with variations that have come along. There, socially, for us at the, it used to be that, I think it was Saturday, when there weren't any dinner plans. We used to have there was a real thing of like where people would go for dinner. And whether another team, we would get sometimes invited by a local team to be like their guests at a dinner someplace, and it had a sort of different arc to it this Saturday. I think the advent of the dinner on the field has been really nice, giving people choice but a place to not be quite on their own.
Do you think there was either a good or bad effect to the feeling of the ale when it became perhaps more structured?
I wouldn't.
Or was it just like,
I think it's
thank
just
goodness they brought buses because it makes it easier?
I don't perceive it as like negative or positive.
Yeah.
Just see like what's going to be a little different this year, and and I mean I don't remember anything specific about when the buses appeared, but certainly it was really nice to have that bus time together. So I see it as like innovations that come along, and there's good things to them. I'm not sitting around bemoaning anything that was lost, but neither did I think that, oh God, thank God we got rid of that. I think I have a kind of live and let live attitude about that.
Yeah.
I think it's become more visible to me, partly because we organize our own ale and we know how much work it is, and partly because when the committee came to be rather than the Marlboro teams hosting it, the structure of the organizing became more visible when it was invisible to me, either because I was younger or less experienced or just took it for granted. I think that the ability for people, for example, to get scholarships and volunteer, and just like the degree of organization that spreads the work around a little bit, seems like it's been very like a very positive thing, and it makes it look less like it just happens all by itself, but that's kind of a good thing too, because nothing actually happens just by itself. So
So you joined Ring of Bells and Half Moon Sword at the same time,
right?
Do you want
in the fall of '83?
Do you want to go into sort of your history with Ring of Bells and Half Moon Sword, or just one or the? So, do you want to tell us a little bit about what it was like to join those teams and what they were like at that point in time?
Yes. So Ring of Bells was a very large team that Jody Evans Jody Evans had moved to Boston, but a lot of there was a strong connection to the founding, but it was 9 years in. So Ring of Bells was founded in 1974, and so I joined in '83. It was 9 years in, but it had a very, very strong character, a very kind of enthusiastic but intense kind of way of being. I'm pretty sure that when I joined, they were in a leadership transition that I didn't totally understand, because I think there were 3 people sharing the teaching role. I'm pretty sure, and we'd have to fact check this, I'm pretty sure it was Linda Swenson, Beverly Francis, and Jody McGean. Pretty sure. So they were senior members of the team. People, I might have the details on that wrong, but they were very. There was somebody in charge of warm ups. You know, and then June Rollins was still on the team. She and Jim Rollins had moved. I think that they had always lived on Long Island, but at some point they started dancing with the team on Long Island. But June gave the team a very strong, fun identity, and I'm pretty sure Maggie Shealy was the squire at that point. Was New Traditions for me. There, Jocelyn Reynolds did a master's thesis about the history of Ring of Bells, which I have a copy of if you want. That tells a lot, would have many more of the details about it. It was probably done 20 years ago, and at that point memories would have been fresher than mine is right now. From that I definitely learned that I began to move into leadership dance role in the first couple of years, but I think I brought a different emphasis, because having maybe come from New Haven Morrison Sword and from a mixed team, a kind of more of an emphasis of like athleticism and a little bit less on kind of the precision that I don't think everybody appreciated. But I wasn't aware of it at the time. Yeah. I was just, I think that kind of flew by me. I can't remember the leadership roles, but definitely my peer group was like Maggie and Wendy Shackerfin, and I was on the younger end of the team, but learned so much, from joining that team, and there was a very active dance calendar. Mm-hmm. So it was very exciting. I really loved
Was Ring of Bells running an ale of their own in New York City then?
No. We've hosted tours and things, but and we've done things on certain anniversaries, but we never had a regular thing for out of town teams. It's been more like one or two teams.
What about Half Moon?
So Half Moon had been started 2 years before, in 1981, by basically a combination of Wendy Shacker and you'd have to verify this also, but I'm pretty sure Wendy went up to Deirdre Bialo Padine and said, "We're starting a sword team and you're going to teach it." I think that's what legend has it. So the Half Moon started as a longsword team. And then when I joined, I had done both longsword and rapper in New Haven. And so I offered to teach rapper. And so that's when we added the rapper piece of it. Uh-huh.
Were you young on that team? Or
I was young on that team also, yeah. Because I just graduated from college. I was 22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet you took a teacher role.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, because I came with a different, they were open to that. I came with the rapper that they had, because I've been doing rapper for 4 years.
How was it going from the mixed team to all women's teams?
It was, I embraced it. I didn't have any, other than maybe the culture, maybe there was a bit of a stylistic clash that I later found out about from Ring of Bells. But I think I just accepted it as fine and normal. And Michael and I have been dancing together on New Haven, but he came to play for Half Moon. So he's been a member of Half Moon also since 1983.
Cool.
Yeah.
They found one another and they never parted.
Aww.
So we have found that people tell stories of when their team first went to the ale. So did Half Moon go at the same time as Ring of Bells, or how did that happen?
No, Half Moon was invited quite a bit later. I don't know when it was. it was sometime in the 80s for sure, because the first time we went was the year that actually I don't know if he was there with a team, but Trevor Owen was there, and he saw us dance and said, you should come to Whitby. And so we went to Whitby in 89. Wow. 89, yes. So it might have been, I mean, I'm sure the records say, I want to guess 88 maybe, might have been the first time that Half Moon was invited. And then we were on a sort of kind of intermittent schedule. It sort of felt like maybe every other year for a while we would get invited. But you'd have to consult the paper trail. I don't know.
Our list of teams.
Your list of teams, yes.
Trying to assemble sort of the list of which teams were there every year.
Yeah.
So we have that.
Yeah. I did that. Yeah, I did that for when we had the pandemic sword ale.
Yeah.
Part of what I did was a little history of the sword ale, and I went through all the things and figured out what teams were there, because we've now had, it would have been the 38th ale last week, but it's the 37th.
Right.
So we have 36 years of record, or 35 years of records, and look to see where, who was on there and who and what our venues were, which was an interesting part of it. Yeah.
So Ring of Bells was first at the Ale, did you say?
I believe Ring of Bells was there at the very first ale, which would have been 76. And 77 was Michael's first time at the ale with Bowery, so he was there at the second one, and then not Bowery, Binghamton, and then I went as a guest to Binghamton in 78. So Ring of Bells had been going throughout. Yeah, and I think it might have been at 78, that first ale that I was at, that Ring of Bells did the Mummies play as skit night. So they did an all-women's mummers play that I was really impressed by. I thought it was fabulous. The Mummies play, yeah, which I'm pretty sure Jody Evans wrote. And so it's sort of where I got to see them in action for the first time, and it was pretty fantastic.
Was it your aspiration to eventually join Ring of Bells?
Yeah, I mean, on some level, yeah. I always imagined that I would go back to. I mean, I wasn't thinking that I would join in high school. That wasn't on my agenda. But once I'd started Morris dancing, yeah, and I was super impressed with them. And Jody Evans' play was, instead of St. George, she was St. Joan, so she was Joan of Arc, but all her lines were in French. So. And I think Margaret Ann Martin, I think, was was Mother Nature, and Beverly Francis was the Fool, and I can't remember the other. I know. Linda Swenson was, instead of the Turkish Knight, she was the Turkish Delight. She was a belly dancer, and she killed Saint Joan with a pelvic thrust. She was the victim of my child was victim of a pelvic thrust. She was.
I wish we.
It's too bad that's not on video somewhere.
I think Hara or I have the script for it somewhere.
I was just going to say, where is the script
for the Mummy's play?
We may get in touch with you. Do you think, so going to the ale, was that the inspiration to create new things then?
Oh, 100%, yeah. I mean, I think the prospect of performing Memorial Day weekend is always the culmination of every practice season, and one of the things that drove, discipline and creativity and aspiration, and just like we want to look really good at the ale, because that's it was the reason to practice for a lot of people, I think.
Wow.
Yeah
I totally get that. Yeah,
because it's a culmination. It's like the big deal.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's the ultimate audience.
The ultimate
right?
audience, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not like people on the street. It's like, what are they doing?
Yes. Is this German? Yeah,
Right. Right. I have to pay for this? I'm just walking by. Do you know how or when Half Moon started?
How the team began?
Yeah. Like,
It was in '81, and it was, I don't know what motivated Wendy to say we're going to have a sword team. She might have done it at one of those late night Tuesdays or at maybe at camp. But we could ask her. She's still around. And I know that Deirdre had definitely done some long sword at camp, and she had learned some from Jim Morrison. And so I think that might have been why Wendy cornered her and said, okay, you're going to lead. We want to do sword dancing and you're going to teach it. And we did. And we have a whole history of the ale, Half Moon Ale, that we did for the virtual ale that we could share. If I'm sort of off topic, but if you wanted it. But definitely part of what inspired the Half Moon Sword Ale was the experience that so many of us had going to Marlboro and feeling that sword dancing lacked something like that. The closest that sword dancing had to that opportunity to see other dancers and learn from other dancers was NEFA. But the way that NEFA worked at that time was that the rapper dancing was in the cafeteria on a rather slippery floor, and
noisy.
It was just one team would get a slot, and then some other time there'd be another team that had a slot. So if you wanted to see rapper, I don't remember about Longsword, but if you wanted to see rapper, you'd go to the cafeteria to see the rapper dance at that time. But as the performers, you didn't know who were the other sword dancers in the audience. There was that sense of, like, there's a lot of pressure here, and there's a lot of knowledgeable people, but we don't know each other, and it was very nerve-wracking. And the idea for the sword ale actually came from one of our members, who was one of our original fools, Susan Avino, who said, "This is terrible. Why? How come we don't do something together with these people? Why are we doing this?" And she wanted to do a weekend of workshops and things, and that was sort of the seed that was planted that eventually became the Half Moon Ale. But we were originally going to do it in upstate, because we felt like Marlboro, you had to be like in the countryside, and you had to all be sleeping and eating in the same place, and it wouldn't be actually possible to do an ale in a city.
Right.
And I think it was Wendy who said, well, but why don't we just do it here? And I'm like, you can't do that. And then we thought, wait, well, maybe you can. And so, but it was interesting the degree to which the paradigm of the Marlboro Ale so occupied our understanding of what an ale should be or could be, that we felt like it had to define what we did. And then we kind of, mutated it, but kept a lot of elements, I think,
It
that
certainly
are
seemed
similar.
like it influenced your thinking in terms of it's important to get together with other groups that do what we do.
Yes.
And come together and
Yes.
celebrate that we do this, but
Yes.
also get to sort of learn from each other.
Learn from each other and get to know each other. You join each other's company, and yes, in a more sort of collaborative setting.
Right,
and
but also
the idea of having mass stands and then tours and
Yeah.
having a feast, all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that Marlboro, I don't know if Marlboro was the originator of that, but in my experience, that was defining.
I'm trying to go back to Tony's our interview with Tony, and the vision that he brought from England of the lamb ale, and
Interesting.
have to go back and look. Do you have any favorite times at the ale?
That you can tell us about.
No, I mean momentous things for you, things that may have changed your dancing, or
Oh my gosh, wow.
let's start with that
That changed my dancing.
filter.
Wow. I mean, after what did we just say? 45 years of this, where I've said to people, and somebody said something similar to me about this the other day. I've sometimes felt when I'm at the Marlboro Ale that I've been there on some level just continuously. It's like time looped around and sort of brought me back, and like I'm still here instead of I'm here again.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
Yes, right. I took some time off to go home and work, but
but like I'm
here.
on some level just still here, which
yeah.
is why when it looked like there was a prospect of not having that campus anymore, that was very, devastating. And the year that I was in exile was challenging also.
Yes.
And there, gosh, it was like decades of experience. I don't know. Let me randomly. I definitely have been so inspired by all the dancing that we've seen, like just amazing innovations, beautiful execution, just that feeling of being sitting and watching a show. I think my favorite part is always at Newfane because everyone's relaxed and there's a great audience and everyone's feeling an energy, and so I always feel like those really, really good shows at Newfane are fantastic, and I've really felt that I've come away from them thinking that whole thing was great. Like everything about it was great, and so just the caliber has been really exciting. I certainly have had a lot of memories of some of the English teams that have come over and just really knocked our socks off. Whether it was Lizzie Drippings or Windsor or Great Western or didn't the Atterbury team come once? Or did Atterbury come? Kirtlington, I think. Mr. Jorix. Kirtlington, yes.
Came.
So.
7 Champions came.
Oh, yeah, 7 Champions, yeah, who we had seen in England already, yeah. And just like how memorable and wonderful. I mean, Lizzie Drippings, I think, really made an impression on me because they were such a spectacle. They were they took the stage with so much the outside capering crew, just like just went crazy for some of that, and some of the big so those were always kind of big memorable moments for me. Some of the pickup dancing that used to happen in the music shed before it moved up to so on Friday night, the pickup dancing, it's been in different places, and I really liked it up in the pub also, but the music shed had a certain kind of energy. Like we'd arrive ready to pitch a tent, people would already be in there just dancing, and I remember that being very energizing. Maybe partly for me when I wasn't on a team also, because to arrive and there was this like very energetic pickup dancing going on that I could totally participate in. Nobody was in kit, it just was very equalizing.
I'm sorry, you just made a connection for me now, because in Doug's interview, he talked about coming with green fiddle, maybe, and making the 13-hour trip, and they got there, he said, at 2 or 3 in the morning, and they just got out of the car and had to do a dance. So maybe that was having not been there for the Friday night pickup dancing, they were doing their thing. Interesting.
Some of the some incredible skit moments, the whole what will Newtown do this year kind of just all the planning and work that goes into making those spectacular moments. They're not just spontaneous. It's because people have been investing their energy and their creativity, and just to see what that was seemed really super special to me. Oh my gosh, I'm sure there's a million others, and I'll think about them as I leave. Just such I enjoyed some years there were some workshops on Sunday morning, and that was really fun to be able to do things, do things together.
I'm not a Morris dancer. I have done a lot of performance dancing in other genres. So I know what it's like to be enveloped in this passionate thing, right? And building towards. And all of a sudden it just occurred to me, is there such a thing that as improvisation in Morris dancing? Improv? I mean, does that, do people just, make things up as they go along? Ever?
I mean, people do embellishments spontaneously, whether adding a bit of personality or a little flourish. But I haven't seen there's things, people do goofy things like the Joy of Six, which is 6 different traditions with the same dance going on at the same time. So there's a certain amount of improv that goes there on with that. But I mean, the fundamental structure of the dance is it goes a certain way, and you do it the way you do it.
I don't know why that occurred to me. I just, thinking of what you're talking about is a lot of creative energy and innovation in a small space, basically, and how much that's sort of an explosion of enthusiasm and excitement, and getting inspiration.
Well, I would certainly say that in terms of the spontaneity piece, the fooling is a big piece of that, right? So I would warrant that many people who do fooling or have danced with fools would say there's a lot of improv in that. Because you don't know what the fool's going to do, and the fool maybe doesn't know what they're going to do, and it'll depend upon the nature of the interaction, not only with the dancers, but with the audience as well. And so there's the unpredictability, and I think even if certain things are set, other things emerge from the moment. And I think that's part of the role of the fool, is that the dancers are doing the dance the way it's supposed to go, and then the fool is introducing this level of spontaneity, chaos, unpredictability, and so on.
And if you're a good team, you respond to that, I presume.
Right, yes. Or I suppose it depends on the team about whether you're even supposed to respond to the fool or not. So,
I love that. That is so interesting. We plan to talk to people who have been memorable fools at the Ale. We're talking to Daniel later, and hopefully John Mayberry and
talk about Susan
Wallach.
Susan Wallach.
Anyone else you think we should talk to who has been memorable in that role?
Who's still alive?
Or tell us about someone who isn't alive.
Well, Bob DeLuca was one of the consummate fool. Just amazing, just gorgeous and deeply funny, but also very poignant fool from Binghamton.
Are there any pictures or?
Oh yeah, there's pictures. And I mean I have some from the early days, but I don't know. I think there's video. I mean John Dexter would be a great one to tell you about. Bob, he was just unbelievable. I'm sure I can think of others, but he's the one who comes to mind.
Thank you for that. Just giving us people we can talk to.
I don't know whether it was John Mayberry that told me this, or if somebody who's done fooling who said the fool actually needs to be one of the strongest dancers in the set.
Right.
Because they're going to be constantly trying to interrupt the dancing and, well, not interrupt the dancing, but they're going to try to appear to be seeding chaos without ever actually interrupting the dancing. So they have to be very knowledgeable and strong dancers.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. And there's been wonderful people who've done, great things, lots of them.
I also have a great sense of timing.
Yes.
As a comedian, but also as a dancer, knowing when to come in.
Yes.
I think we've been talking for almost an hour, but I have a couple more questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
So, Susan knows more about Ring of Bells than I do, and has noticed over the years that Ring of Bells has brought a second generation of dancers into its fold, and
quite successfully, it seems.
Oh, thank you.
Like there's a whole next.
Yeah, I mean it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
It ebbs and flows, but yes,
was that intentional?
Oh yeah, I mean I think that my perception is that there was a generation gap at the Yale and in Morris and in folk in general, that I was born in 1961. When I went to the AL, is that when you were born? When I went to the AL at 15, I was by far the youngest, and I was used to hanging out with people who were about 10 years older, like 5 to 10 years older than I was, and those were the people who were inventing a new thing and creating this incredible energy, and they had an excitement about it, and it was theirs, and they had pride and investments. And then there was kind of below me, I think, like a gap before basically the generation that was the children of those people who were born in the 40s and 50s. So people who were then born, I don't think there were a ton of people born in the 60s and 70s. I'm overgeneralizing, but as the people who are basically the children of that first generation of people born in the 40s and 50s started to join in, and of course spurred by incredible work by Tom Kreskel and other people bringing them along. But there was like this big second wave of people, I would guess, who were born in the 80s and 90s. And so there was, and I know from talking to them that we have friends from the Morris world who are in that missing group and always felt like they were kind of by themselves. Like they didn't have a cohort. I won't attribute that to anyone in particular, but I've had this conversation just because I don't want to get it wrong. But there are people who are 5 to 10 years younger than me who's like, where's my peer group? My peer group's not here. And then 5 to 10 years younger than them, they have a huge peer group and they're there. Yeah. And so I think what happened for Ring of Bells and Half Moon, both, part of it was our actual children, our actual offspring, were part of that, like bringing in just actually the next generation. So it was like it took a full generation jump. Like there's a 25-year jump as opposed to like, that's why the 10 years is missing. But we've also, recruited at contra dancing. I think contra dancing went through the same thing of like, where are the 20 somethings? They comes in waves. Recruited at contra dancing and then in various impromptu places where right now we have a high school student who's dancing with us who joined because she had been brought to our May Day morning, as a child, and then she wanted to dance, and so now she danced with us. And she's a good 10, 15 years younger than the people, because the young people on Ring of Bells are now in their 30s. They're not, yeah.
So you went to the Ale when you were a teenager,
yes.
And so you probably observed your children or the younger dancers going to the Ale for the first time. And how was that for you?
Oh my God, thrilling. It's so incredible. I mean, I think we all feel that, like this collective kind of felling over young people wanting to do this, wanting to hang out with us, feel incredibly lucky and just blessed to be in an intergenerational community, to have friends who are younger than we are, to have people who care to talk to us and enjoy our company and seek it out. It's like it's the best. And I think when we started to see those more Gen X millennials start to come in, we're like, yes. And I think that to overgeneralize, I think it's harder for the teenagers when they come in a group to really integrate with the older folks. But as they find their legs and find their security and so on, and maybe emerge out of their tight social bubble, they've integrated really beautifully into the community. And I feel like it's really important to let them have those moments of creativity and to find their legs and to make the mark. Because one thing that I felt maybe partly explained that missing generation a little bit is that they didn't have the chance to be the creators in a way that the people 10 to 15 years older than they were. Because it was just like such an excitement. The first ale, the first Morris teams, the Morris revival, we're doing this thing. For the people who founded Ring-a-Bells, it was like, we're going to stick it to the men. Like, we weren't allowed to do this, and we're going to do it. And like, we're claiming it and inventing traditions. And then the next generation were coming in, and they were being asked to insert themselves into something that already existed, and that they would be assimilated or indoctrinated or brought along to absorb what was already in place, rather than to have that generative ability. I think it's super important that they have the space to make their mark and not just say, this is the way we do it. It's always been that way. Don't worry, we've got this. Or like, we'll tell you how it has to be done. And I think one of the nice things about seeing new teams arising is really different to join an existing team versus to create a new one.
Yeah.
And you've been in both situations, you know how that is. And the people who started the ale and who were I looked up to so much and who started these teams, they were the ones who created it and figured out what it was going to be. And I just aspired to be part of it, and it was fun. I didn't want to change it, at least not consciously, but I just wanted to be able to be part of it. But the on-ramp isn't the same for everybody, especially if there's a big age gap, So
that's so interesting.
So do you think of yourself, when you self-identify, do you think of yourself as what do you think of yourself as first and second?
In regard to what?
Your life.
In my life?
Yeah.
You mean dance life?
Dance life?
Your life.
My life? I don't know. I had this nice exercise we did once at a museum conference I was at, where you traced your hands and then you wrote in each of the fingers kind of like, what are the phases, or like, what was your identity? And I can't remember exactly what I wrote. It was just like a private thing that we did. But I felt like that turned out to be a good number, like five identities turned out to be a good number, and definitely always in that would be a dancer and a member of this community. Like, that would always be one of those pillars. If it came down, and probably if it came down to 3, it probably would be there too, but I have different after 61 years, like a lot of different aspects to my identity. But this is the thing that's defined me, the most, other than my family. Yeah.
So, I'll insert a question here. So both your daughters took up dancing.
Yes.
At what age did you start bringing them to the ale? And
they came from infancy, so they
balance them being there. Yeah.
So my kids came from the time they were born, or in utero, in one case. When they were really little, my mother-in-law, bless her, would often come, and she took a hotel room nearby, sometimes at the Whetstone, sometimes in Brattleboro, and kept the kids with her. So she would bring them, and they would be able to go to sleep there, and then she'd bring them along, and then she'd take them home. They were also really good at like sleeping on a coat in the corner of a contra dance, because they had learned that from a very young age, and so they definitely slept in the dining hall. It was a real blessing when the dorms opened up, because when they were, I don't remember what year that was and how old they were, but we could put them to sleep in the dorms at that age and feel like it was fine, in a way that being down the hill in a tent might have felt too scary for them if they woke up. And then Emma started Morris dancing. She joined Ring-a-Bells when she was 11. So
wonderful.
Yeah, so I have a picture of her in our bathroom of her playing trombone at the procession when she was 11, because she was a trombone player also. So And then Molly never joined Ring a Bell. She came to a couple practices, but for various reasons didn't join the team. But she was both she and Emma danced with New Moon Sword, which was a junior high school and high school team. And in 2012, New Moon was invited to Marlboro, and they danced at Marlboro.
I saw the name of that team on the list and was wondering who that was as a team.
So that was pretty exciting that she had the chance to perform at the Ale after having been there for a year.
Some wonderful gaps because, in my memory, I think of Tom Kruskal as being so central in bringing teens and adolescents into the Ale, but it's clear now from all the stuff you've said and from what other people have said, teens have been making their way to the Ale kind of all throughout.
Well, I guess, definitely the founding of New Moon was inspired by Great Meadows. So he was already doing that, and there were already teens. Okay. And Emma Conroy, Ellen Cookson's daughter, who dances with Ring Bells and Half Moon now, she had a lot of friends in the Great Meadows crowd and through Pine Woods, and she's like, I want us to have what they have. She wanted, we want to do this too. Yeah. And so she instigated really with Hannah Barry, Margaret and Jeff Barry's daughter, that like we want a teen team also. So it was kind of inspired by what Tom was doing.
Wonderful. Okay.
So, yeah. And there were other teams and sometimes Y.
Yes.
And Jane Finley's team, the Maple Morris, with Hannah Lindler Finley was on that. So there's been a lot of people who worked with teens, and Greenwich Guard, who was I think at my almost first or second Ale, and they were a teen team.
77 or
78. They were there, and they had started as a teen team, and then they reunited after graduating college. They came back together. But I think pretty sure that was Tony Poyle who did that in Connecticut, in the kind of the Greenwich, Connecticut area. So he was working in high school with teens. Yeah, I think there's a big history of that, but nothing as massive and sustained as Tom's.
Right.
That's true. Really been key. Jan Elliott working with
Woods Hole teens.
Yeah, Woods Hole teen. Yeah, and working with teens, and there's been a wonderful group of people who have fostered those.
I think that's another subset.
Dave Stryker did that. Jillian, yeah. So there's been a lot of, mentors to the generations that are coming up.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
It's fun. Gosh, this making me so excited to go to Yale. I was just looking at the NEFA schedule this morning. Like NEFA's coming back in a new place.
Oh, another new place.
Right.
Yes.
It's in a hotel.
In a hotel,
Year.
Yeah.
What town? Who knows?
I don't remember. There's so many M towns.
It's got an M. Madison? No, I don't know. It's not Manchester. That's where it was.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I haven't been to anything since Natick. So.
Oh yeah.
When you said the cafeteria at Natick, I just have such a strong picture in my head of